So what I want to talk about today is how you can create a strong thesis, and that's what we're going to be looking at. All right, basically, the reason the thesis is important is because it tells you what your paper is about. And if the thesis is strong, your reader is going to know exactly where you're going to be taking him or her, and you're going to have an easier time presenting your ideas. What your thesis should look like is something that's very specific. It should cover only what you want to discuss in your paper. And it appears generally at the end of the first paragraph. What I'm going to do now is just look at 3 different kinds of papers because you write different things for classes, right? So for an analytical paper, it looks something like this. An analysis of the college admission process reveals one challenge facing counselors: accepting students with high test scores or students with strong extracurricular backgrounds. Right? So you know immediately what you need to do to explain this thesis. If you're writing an explanatory paper, it's going to look a little bit different because your goal there with an explanatory paper is to explain. Right? So in this case, the life of the typical college student is characterized by time spent studying, attending class, and socializing with peers. And now the reader knows exactly what to expect from this paper. Now, if you're arguing something or writing an opinion paper, such as it's going to look something like this. High school graduates should be required to take a year off to pursue community service projects before entering college in order to increase their maturity and global awareness. Now, you notice one of the things that makes this kind of thesis different from the others is that it has that word should in there. And that's a judgment type word, and that's the kind of thing you should have in an opinion piece where you are making a judgment. And that tells you exactly what the argument is going to be that you're making. Okay, now I want to look just for a moment at some possible theses that you could write for this paper of yours. But a lot of this is useful and can be transferred to other types of papers. So although the text focuses on A and B, or you could say A, B, and C, right? The film also considers this other thing. The transformation in Vaca and his companion shows how identity in the 16th century was. Right? Is this making sense in terms of how you would craft your thesis? Okay, a second possibility would be to say the Vaca describes his journey in flattering terms by exaggerating both the hardships and his heroic responses to them. The film adds both drama and realism to the narrative. This essay will compare the point of view in each and show how. Okay, I'm going to move forward now with more information just about how you can first start step 1 with drafting your thesis and then refining your thesis. So the first trouble, if you're having trouble getting started, is to consider using one of these 5 techniques. And these are all in your handout. The first one is you start with a purpose statement that you'll later turn into a thesis. So, for example, discuss the history of the Reform Party and explain its influence on the 1990 presidential and congressional election. So a typical kind of assignment you might get in, for example, a poli-sci class. We'll go ahead and read that purpose statement.
Newspaper briefly sketches the history of the grassroots conservative parent-led Reform Party and analyzes how it influenced the economic and social ideologies of their two-mainstream party.
Right, and this is presented in the kind of format like the kind of paper you're writing, where it's based on the purpose statement, and it says this paper briefly does this thing. Second thing you can do is start with a question and move to an assertion. So if your assignment asks a specific question, turn that into an assertion, and then give reasons why you have that opinion. Right? So why did Eisenhower and Rappaccini have to be proud of? Why aren't they satisfied? And how does pride, as demonstrated in the birthmark in Rappaccini's daughter, lead to unexpected problems? Typical kind of questions you might get in the literature. Okay, so can you go ahead and read them?
Eisenhower and Rappaccini are proud of their great knowledge. However, they are also very greedy. They are driven to use their knowledge to alter some aspect of nature as a test of their ability. Evil results when they try to play God.
So here's where you're starting off. Again, you're just answering the question, and you get that down on the paper, and the idea is you're going to refine this later. Okay, the third approach you could take is just coming up with some kind of main idea that you plan to write, right? For example, the reason some toys succeed in the market is that they appeal to the consumer sense of the ridiculous and their desire to laugh at themselves. The fourth thing you can do is list ideas. Make a list of things that you might want to include and try to group them. So for example, say you have a kind of general idea, oh, I'd like to write some about the internet and social networking, and so you just write these things down and say, well, the internet, what does that mean? Well, it's when you have access to limitless data. Mobile technology, that's not exactly the same. That's when you have access everywhere. Social networking is when you're keeping in touch long distance, and addiction to cell phones is the issue I'm really interested in, which has to do with how phones compete with face-to-face in game states. So you lay these things out, and then you try to figure out, well, maybe I need to combine two of them. Which two will work best? And that's where you get the basis for what your ideas are going to be that you'll then create into it. Now, this particular one, formulas, I'm giving these away for free, even though really I should sell them, but I'm going to just offer them to you as a gift. Okay, so although most readers of blank have argued that blank, closer examination shows that blank. How many of you recognize the utter brilliance of this formula? This can be transferred to multiple situations. Okay, here's another one. Blank uses blank and blank to prove that blank. Phenomenon X is a result of the combination of blank, blank, and blank. All right? Now, you might think, oh, well, that was all very formulaic, but the fact of the matter is, what's hard is plugging in the specifics and making them work. And so if that's what you were struggling with, getting those details in there, those formulas do the easy part. They provide you the structure, and then you move on. Okay, so once you've got this possible thesis statement, it's now time to go ahead and include one. You probably thought you were done, right? Thesis statement. First thing you want to do is indicate the focus and scope of the argument. So for example, in this essay, I will discuss the effects of pesticides on fish populations. Looks okay, right? No, we're going to do better.
The use of the pesticides has not only been disseminated and decimated fish populations, but has also endangered other creatures, including humans who eat poisoned fish.
That's great. Okay, so the point is that these pesticides have decimated these populations, and they've also endangered other creatures. So you can see how this paper is going to lay out. It has several elements that have to be in there. And by the way, just for your information, the word decimated, it literally means 1/10. So it means you have destroyed 90% of the fish. But nowadays, a lot of times people just use decimated to mean done a lot of reduction. Okay, indicate the organization of your paper. Many things have contributed to the uncertain position of NATO in the 90s.
Changes in the balance of European power, the decline of some previously important economies, and the growing importance of European ties to Middle Eastern, Asian, and Africa have contributed to the uncertain position of NATO in the 1990s.
How many people would find it awkward to write a sentence like this?
It is.
Okay, it's a lengthy sentence, but it is not a run-on. And I'll tell you why. If you look at the organization of it, all it says is A, B, and C contribute to D. That's the structure. Okay, step 3. State your position or argument in specific concrete terms. Joseph Conrad's an interesting but confusing writer.
Heart of Darkness uses an elliptical and introverted sentence structure and a confusing use of pronouns to impart the monomania of Conrad's main character, Kurtz, and the difficulties that Marlowe has in understanding him.
See, that wasn't so bad, was it? You see a word like monomania? Okay, I've never looked this word up, but I can just figure out mono means one, right? It doesn't mean you get really sick. It just means one. Mania means crazy, so I assume he's his self-craziness, right? Okay, so when you look at a thesis like this, you can say you now have a lot of confidence, you know exactly how this piece is going to lay out. and that's it.